Righty, gentlemen, happy Friday. Today we are going down a dark and windy path, but I think it's an important path to go down, and I want to share with you why I have changed my views on depression and I suppose mental health overall. Now, I have to caveat this that I completely understand if people do not agree with me. I completely understand that depending on who you are, where you are, current circumstances, or how you or people close to you might have been affected by mental health, you might perceive this in a different way. And if you do so, then you are completely entitled to. I am not saying that I am right and you are wrong. This is very much just my experience, my opinions based on my experience, I should say. I should also say that I'm only commenting on depression and mental health in men because I am a biological man and I am not a woman. So I do not think it is my place to talk about female mental health and specifically depression. So with those caveats out of the way, and I mean them well-intentioned, I want to tell you a little bit of a backstory as to sort of how we got here, what my views were, what they are now, and why they've changed. Let's structure it like that. So let's wind the clock back. For people who do not know me, hello, my name is Doug, I'm 36 years old, and I first experienced depression, well, being completely honest, probably in my childhood, but it really was amplified from the ages of 25 to 29, 30. And I specifically remember the feeling, even to this day, I'm now 36, I can't remember if I said that, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I specifically remember it, the exact feeling, almost exact moments in times. It felt like the whole world was just swallowing me up. Every day was so much effort just to get through it. Like I was literally just surviving, just every single day at work. And you have to remember, so 25, it was 11 years ago, which is, geez, I had to do the maths then. I was like, bloody hell, that's insane. So 11 years ago was 2013. Discussing mental health, particularly amongst men, was not a thing in 2013, okay? So I didn't tell anybody how I felt. I barely told anybody if I was sad. That's just how it was. Let me just tilt my camera a little bit. Sorry, you can probably hear my neighbors have decided to be exceptionally loud just at the exact time that I decided to hit play or record on this video, which, to be honest, I'm getting used to it now. But anyway, where was I? So yeah, people weren't talking about men's mental health at that time. So the vast majority of people who were suffering, and I'm sure there were a lot of people suffering, just kept quiet. Anyway, fast forward from 25 to 30. At 30, I hit my absolute lowest. And on December the 17th, 2017, actually, I wasn't quite 30 because my birthday is New Year's Eve. So I was still 29. It's my last days in my 20s. I hit my absolute lowest point. It culminated from a nasty breakup from a relationship. I was fast approaching my 30s. I didn't have a lot to show for myself. And I just completely broke. And for about 24-hour, 36-hour period, I was suicidal. And for anybody who's experienced suicidal ideation, they might not be able to necessarily explain it to you because it's taken me years to really understand what it is and to actually put it into words. But the way I now explain it to people is this. So your brain, for the vast majority of your life, likes to stay in a state of what we call homeostasis. It likes to stay the same. And this is a protective mechanism. And it will effectively operate your body from your brain and do things to you. It will release and secrete hormones and all sorts of different things. It will shut off processes if it doesn't like you doing something. And if it senses that you are trying to change that balance, that homeostasis. And that is why change is difficult. At a biological level, that is why change is difficult, because your brain adapts to whatever situation it's in. Even if you are morbidly obese and depressed, it will just adapt to that position. Your brain will adapt to that position, and anytime you try and change anything, it will protect you. When I was suicidal, and again, I can only speak for myself, when I was suicidal, it was like my brain wanted to kill me. So you would see things very differently. So for example, if you were crossing the road, and you saw loads of cars zooming past you, rather than waiting for the green man or whatever, the red light, your brain would tell you to cross the road. And this is why you see people jumping in front of trains, throwing themselves off of buildings, horrible shit, right? So my answer to that was literally just to stay in bed for 36 hours. I didn't go in the kitchen because I knew there were knives in there. I went back and forth to the toilet, I drank water, and I lay in bed. And I remember it vividly. I watched Dunkirk, the film, because it had just come out. And I watched it like 4 times, just back to, I just had nothing. It was really weird. Anyway, I came out of that, and I've always been a very introspective guy. And quite quickly, I sort of thought on that. And I didn't tell anybody how I'd felt. I just went back, I think I took the Monday off of work, and I went back to work on the Tuesday, and that was it. But I was very introspective at that time, and I was like, okay, I'm still here. I don't necessarily want to die anymore. So what am I going to do about this? So I started to look into like what I could do. I was like, enough's enough. And sure enough, over the course of the next 6 months, I lost 22 kilos in weight. I really started ramping up my physical fitness and my exercise. I'd already been going to the gym, but going to the gym like 90% of men go to the gym and not really training that hard, and looking at my phone for most of the time. And then this all culminated in the summer. I think it was around May time. I effectively, no, it wasn't, sorry, it was August. It was August. I effectively came out about my struggles. Now, this was probably the most terrifying thing of my life, because at this stage, nobody knew. I actually can't remember if I broke the news to my parents before or after. Genuinely can't remember. But I announced it, and I remember one of my friends knew at this point, maybe 1 or 2 of my friends knew at this point. My friend Sam definitely knew, and we were talking openly about it. And he was obviously, love him forever for this. He was super encouraging, and he was saying to me, "You got to post this, Doug. You got to post it." So I posted it, and I posted it everywhere. I was like, "Fuck it. If you're gonna do it big." So Instagram, Facebook was big at the time, LinkedIn, because I was in the corporate world at that point. And it blew up. And it blew up because no one else was talking about it. This is 2018 now. So still, men's mental health was not really being discussed. It was just starting to be discussed. But there was none of this, nowhere near the magnitude and the volume that you see now. And the response was amazing. And because I'd waited until I'd changed my life, because I didn't want to be the guy who was sitting in victim mode complaining. That has never been me. So I wanted to wait until I had transformed, until I had done the thing. And maybe something inside of me, I don't know, knew that other men were going to reach out to me. I don't know, but they did. Sometimes publicly, sometimes in private. 90% in private. And they would admit that they were struggling. And people like we have tribal instincts, not just as men, I think as human beings. And when other people, feel this way, it parabonds them. They feel a sense of togetherness, okay? And at this point, I should say as well, I had also been through therapy. Not actually for the first time in my life. My first time I went through therapy was in 2014. I had a girlfriend at the time who was in psychiatrics. I can't remember the exact job title, but she was in psychiatrics, and she had identified this in me. Now, she also happened to be pretty not very well in the head, shall we say. So I took it with a bit of pinch of salt. And I wasn't really receptive to the therapy. And I think if you're not mentally there, it's a little bit like forcing someone to go to the gym. If they don't want to go to the gym, they're not going to try. And then at the first opportunity for them to ditch it, they'll ditch it. And that's exactly what I did with therapy. I kind of nodded my way through it and was like, yeah, cool. Just not buying into it. Like, this is garbage. This is for pussies, blah, 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 blah. All the sort of stuff we all used to believe, or we used to be told to believe. So I had therapy before, but this time around, January 2018, I was like, no, I actually want this now. And I had an amazing therapist, not gonna say her name, in London. I was very lucky because I had a corporate career. I had a very good private healthcare cover, which I took advantage of, rinsed it. So thank you very much to AXA, whoever it was, like thousands of pounds, because it's ridiculously expensive, which I'm laughing about, but I shouldn't laugh about, because there's a lot of people who would need access to this and they can't access it. So I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. But yeah, I was very lucky. I was in that position where I had that access. So I took advantage of that situation, as you should do if you can, and had an amazing therapist. But what was interesting was at the first therapy session, I was offered SSRIs, which are antidepressants, effectively, for anybody who doesn't know. First session. Now, when I started the therapy, it was probably mid-January. And by this point, I'd already been doing really upping my game on my fitness and my diet. So my physical health, let's say, probably for about 3 weeks. So just to tell you what that looked like a little bit, I had completely stopped drinking alcohol, zero alcohol, whereas I used to party all the time. For the first time in my life, I was actually tracking my calories and macronutrients. I was sticking to them. And when I was training in the gym, I was training hard. And I also started going to group fitness classes as well. So I had effectively a coach who was pushing me. And I was like a man fucking possessed. It was insane. So I'd been doing this for about 3 weeks. So the therapy, by the time I actually went to therapy, I genuinely felt significantly better for it. But the therapy was amazing. And I'm not here to slag therapy off at all. And I probably definitely needed it. But what was interesting is in that first session, I was offered SSRIs. Now, if I had started the therapy the day after I was suicidal, I probably would have taken them and my life would probably look very different now. Because I had started the physical fitness and I felt like the trajectory of my life was going in the right direction now, I turned them down. And sure enough, by the summer, by July, August, I'd lost a ton of weight. I looked in absolutely insane condition. People were commenting. I felt amazing. And then I came openly out about my circumstances and situation, okay? Sorry, I'm just drinking my coffee before it goes cold. I shouldn't have made a coffee. That was pointless. But anyway, actually, yeah, I'll just bin this coffee off. I'll get a new one afterwards. So, fast forward to the summer and I'm like, yeah, I'm amazing. So I stopped therapy, had never taken SSRIs and lived happily ever after, right? Well, no. So this was mid-2018. And for a long time after that, one very important detail I missed. In that first therapy session, 2 things happened. 1, I was offered SSRIs. 2, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and I think it was called acute depression, or maybe it was just called depression. Sorry, it was a long time ago. I was not in the best mental state. I can't exactly remember, but effectively I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. I should probably find my actual doctor's notes, but they're there somewhere. Anyway, so that was the diagnosis. It was the first time someone else, like a trained professional, had said to me, you are depressed. And because of the mental state I was in, I assumed that identity. So I now identified as someone who had depression, a disease, an illness. And for a long time, I then actually became an advocate, a voice for this. I became someone who not promoted depression, but I promoted an awareness of it, that it existed. But what was interesting is whilst I was promoting that, and I genuinely believed at that time that I was doing the right thing, that I actually wasn't depressed anymore. Yeah, of course I had bad days and bad weeks. Any human being does. But I wasn't depressed. I wasn't suicidal. My life was on the up and the up. And fast forward to 2021, we're coming to the end of the chaos that I'm not going to say it because we all know why, that we'd ensued for near enough 18 months. Finally, the world was starting to see sense and go back to some form of normality, right? But right at the end of 2021, I had once again found myself in a very similar set of circumstances to the first time that I was suicidal. I was drinking way too much, partying all the time. I had a toxic relationship with a girl. I was living in a house with a good friend of mine, but our relationship had started to become strained just because we were on top of each other all the time. We were living this hard and fast life. It was just quite a negative environment. We were both responsible for that. I'd stopped training. And then on top of all of that, I got the COVID, okay? And it hit me quite bad. I was out of action for a long time. And as a result of that, I lost my appetite. I didn't go outside. I literally didn't see anybody, all of this sort of stuff. And obviously the world was burning outside. It was during the Omicron variant. And the world was losing its mind because the numbers were going up so fast. And then quite quickly we realized it was just literally like a cold. And I fell into a very deep, dark depression again. What was interesting is this time around in February 2022, I reached out again to therapy. Couldn't go and see a doctor because God forbid I see a doctor during the what was going on. And this is where it gets a little bit scary. So this time round, I actually basically my intention was to ask for antidepressants, but I hadn't asked for them. I'd filled in a form online on my GP's website, and I was sent a text message. To this day, I wish I'd kept that text message, but I was sent a text message, and it literally said along the lines of, your prescription is ready to pick up, ironically at Sainsbury's, because the pharmacy nearest me was in one of those big Sainsbury's extras or test, whatever they're called, the big Sainsbury's, which was kind of funny at the time because I was like, this is so weird, I'm going to pick up antidepressants from Sainsbury's. Anyway, sorry, my phone keeps moving because people outside are banging around so loud, they're literally shaking the ground. So anyway, I was just sitting there like, this is insanity. Like, I haven't seen a doctor, I haven't even spoken to a doctor, and I'm being prescribed antidepressants. But I was in a bad way. It was, it was the deepest, darkest winter. My appetite was gone. I'd been partying loads, like I said. I wasn't training. My lifestyle had gone badly. So I scuttled down to Sainsbury's, picked up my pills, was just given them, and it said, take one of these a day. Now, for anybody who hasn't taken antidepressants, I took one called sertraline, and I got given the lowest dose that you can be given. I think it was 25 milligrams. Now these pills are, I'm not even exaggerating when I show you, they're like this big. They are so small. And I took my one a day. And for about 3 to 4 days, absolutely nothing happened. And then slowly but surely, my life descended into complete and utter chaos. Like, it was almost, and I've done another video on this, but it was almost like my life was saying, or the world was saying to me, oh, you think you were depressed? Take these and we'll show you what depression really is. Now, I'm not going to sit here and slag off antidepressants because, again, I can only tell you what my experience was of them. And I know personally some people who have taken them, are still taking them, and they have had a positive effect on their life. So I'm not here saying that it's some sort of conspiracy and they're doing it on purpose to kill everybody and blah, blah, neuter men, all this stuff. But for me, it did not go well. But I was like, you know what? Stay the course, be committed. So for 4 months, I took one every single day, didn't miss a day. And at the same time, I didn't want anybody to have any excuse over me as to why it hadn't worked. So once again, I quit drinking. I trained harder than ever before. I tried to dial in my sleep. My nutrition was absolutely on point. And by the way, remember, I am a certified nutritionist. I know what dialed in nutrition is. Like, dialed in. And it was every single day. Didn't miss a day, didn't miss a beat. 4 months, and if anything, by the end of those 4 months, despite doing all of those positive things, I felt worse. Now, here's what's interesting. Since then, I stopped taking the drugs, right? So this is now June. It was the end. I can tell you exactly when it was. It was the last week of June. I think, was it June? Yeah, I might need to fact check myself here. It was either the last week of May or the last week of June. But I want to say it was the last week of June because I think I went to Portugal with my friend Chanel the first week of July. It might have even been the 2nd of July. For some reason, that date is in my head. It's not that relevant. But within about 3 days, it felt like I was 16 again. I could physically feel my testosterone levels rising back to base levels. I just felt happy. You could not wipe the smile off my face. I've never felt such elation in my life. And I was a bit worried because I was like, oh my God, is this going to be some massive high and then I'm going to have another crash or nope. I felt king of the world for genuinely 6 months. And then I think I just reset back to a bit of a baseline. Not unhappy, not amazingly happy. In the last 18 months since that whole episode, I look back on this again very introspectively and I realize causation and correlation. And I now am of the belief that depression can be absolutely avoided and is not necessarily something that is genetic. I think some people are more genetically disposed to it than others, but I think if you are depressed, I think there's a very big difference between feeling depressed and having depression. I think having depression is an identity. I think if someone says to you, you have depression and you're in a very vulnerable place mentally, it's very easy to adopt that identity and then use that to become a victim of your circumstances. And if you stay in that victim mentality where you're at a very low level of consciousness, your life is only going to get worse. Drugs or no drugs, by the way. I now look at it and I realize, as I've grown a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and I have the ability to zoom out and look back on my life, that the times when I felt the most depressed and would say I've got depression to people was when I wasn't taking care of myself. The second half of my 20s, when I felt every day was just a survival day. If I look at my lifestyle and take absolute personal responsibility for that lifestyle, it was all my fault. It was no one else's fault. It wasn't girlfriend's faults. It wasn't my friend's faults, my parents' faults, my boss's fault, my colleague's fault. It was my fault. I was choosing to get absolutely smashed at the weekend. I was choosing to have casual sex with strangers. I was choosing to not train and eat like shit. I was choosing all of these things. And then again, if we fast forward to the end of 2021, the start of 2022, I was choosing to be in a toxic relationship and I was contributing to that toxic relationship. And I was probably the bigger cause of it. I was choosing to party all the time and drink loads. I was choosing to live this lifestyle. I was choosing these things. I was making myself depressed. And then I could hide behind this identity of I've got depression. And the fact of the matter is that what healed me, in quotation marks, from this was a change in my lifestyle. And I suppose I'm doing all of this video to hopefully reach one person who is potentially in this place. And then maybe they haven't told anybody, or maybe they have told people and they are on antidepressants and it's not working, it's not making them feel better. You can get better, but only you can do that to yourself. You have to get up and do the work. And you don't need to overcomplicate this. You need to stop drinking. You need to stop taking drugs. You need to stop watching porn, stop playing video games. I mean, those two things weren't really a thing for me, but I understand now, particularly around younger men, video games and pornography is a much bigger problem than it was for my generation. You need to stop these things. Complete abstinence from them, if you're in this position mentally. You also need to think about who you're spending your time with. Are these people adding value to your life or taking away from it? You also need to start physically moving your body. You need to be walking more. You need to be getting in the gym as much as you can. Fuck a training program, go in and act like a psychopath, lifting weights for 45 minutes every single day. When I was at my absolute worst mentally, I was training 10 times a week. That is not healthy. I'm not saying it is, but it was keeping me alive. Train like a psychopath. Eat well, high protein diet, lose some weight. The chances are you probably need to lose some weight. Or at the other end of the spectrum, maybe you need to gain some weight. But sort your calories out. Sort your macronutrients out. High protein diet, no processed shit, no Deliveroos, no fast food. Try to avoid as much high processed sugar as you possibly can, but realize that that isn't going to be the major marker. But fast food, takeaways, particularly high salt and processed stuff, try to avoid it. Make sure you're getting good night's sleeps, going to bed at time, stop scrolling TikTok. Because I guarantee if you do all of this stuff from a mental standpoint, you will be amazed how fast you can transform yourself. And if you can, I have to be very careful with how I say this because I don't want to be responsible for someone else getting worse, but the goal really, if you are on antidepressants, the goal should be to be able to come off the antidepressants. If I think of this objectively, right, and if it was me, I wouldn't want to live the rest of my life on antidepressants. So my goal would be, how do I get myself off of antidepressants? Well, it's to do those things. And if you are considering antidepressants, or if you are even lower than this and you are suicidal right now, and you are watching this, trust me when I say this, try this stuff first. If it doesn't work in 3 months' time and you have stuck to it and you've tried as much as you can, fair enough, man. But we also have to recognize one other thing, and I want to close on this because I appreciate this video is getting a bit long. We have to stop treating men's mental health the way that we treat women's mental health, because men and women are different. And this is why right at the beginning of this video, I said I'm not going to talk about female mental health because I am not a female, I am not a woman. I do not understand the brain and mind of a woman. God knows, it's pretty confusing to me, okay? So, but I respect the fact that we're different. I don't think one is better than the other. I think that we are just different. But we cannot treat men's mental health the same way that we treat women's mental health. Men don't want to talk about this stuff. They need to get up and do stuff. They need to live with purpose. They need to have something to do. They want to take action. Men want to feel control and power. Now, that doesn't mean control and power over other people. They just want to feel in control of their own life, and they want to feel powerful in themselves. So the best thing that you can do, if you are a man or a woman, and one of your male friends or boyfriends or husband or sons is in this state, the best thing that you can do is encourage them to get up and do something. Anything. Get them to do a set of press-ups right now. Get them to read a book. Get them to go for a walk. Listen to a podcast. Listen to this. Anything. Just get them to do something that's going to make the next step possible. And I understand a lot of people will say to me, but I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what my mission is. That's absolutely fine. Just do one thing. Put one foot in front of the other, and the next step will always reveal itself. And then eventually you'll look up from the path, you'll look up and you'll see the goal. You'll see it in front of you. Some people are lucky enough to be able to see the goal. My goal became apparent from me falling into this incredibly low slump of being suicidal. I came out of that thing, and I honestly see it as like a second birth. I'm a completely different person now, like completely different person. I have very polarizing views, and I am absolutely fine with that. I speak completely with utter conviction. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't really care. I don't really care if people agree or disagree with me. I speak with utter conviction because my intentions are absolutely nothing but pure good. But I was lucky. I was lucky in the sense that I looked up from that situation and saw the path in front of me. I just had to walk it. I say just, it wasn't easy, trust me. But I knew I just had to walk it. And I knew if I walked it, not only would I help myself, but I'd be able to help other people. And quite quickly, as soon as other men started coming to me and being like, basically saying, can you help me? In a very roundabout way, because men aren't that direct. I saw my purpose in life very clearly in front of me. And don't get me wrong, I have deviated from it. I have not been some disciple to God, and I'm not religious, and I've not stayed the course. I've gone off course. I have made mistakes in the last 5 years. I am not saying I am perfect by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I've probably made more mistakes in the last 5 years, but I've learned bigger lessons from them. But right now, speaking to you right here, recording this video, the path couldn't be clearer in front of me. But I also understand and empathize with the guys whose path that isn't clear in front of them. And if it's not clear in front of you, just take one step. And that one step is getting up and going out and going to the gym and doing something. Go to the gym, do one session. Then go home, eat a good meal. Don't scroll on TikTok or go on Netflix. Watch something productive on YouTube. Listen to a podcast, read a book, and then go to bed. And then wake up and do the same thing again. String good days together. You'll be amazed how quick you can turn this around. I'm sure I could talk more. I'm sure I've missed stuff that I wanted to say. I made like 4 notes. I should have made more. It's a hard topic. It's a real hard topic to talk about. I'm very conscious that you can put something on the internet, and if it catches fire, well, that's why we've got the fire extinguisher. I'm joking. If it catches fire and goes into the algorithm, you can be in a lot of trouble very quickly because people can take you out of context. People can wildly disagree with you. And as I said right at the beginning, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just trying to talk from the heart, and I'm trying to talk about my experiences. That's all I can do. And if there's a man out there, young or old, who is feeling lost, is feeling like they're in a bit of an abyss, first of all, you are not alone. There are millions of other men in the same position who are suffering the same. You have options. You have choices, even though you don't feel like you have choices. And you are just days away from getting that control and that power back. That is not power and control over other people. That is power and control over yourself. And think about it this way. This is a little bit dark, and I'm sorry if this triggers anybody. But let's look at school shooters very quickly. All of them, without exception, are mentally ill young men. And they wanted power and control so much but didn't know how to take control of it themselves and try to get more power for themselves, that they took control and power over other people and killed other people. And to them, that's what they were doing. They just needed to feel power and control again. And they were so desperate to do that that they would go and murder other people, which is terrifying. And then you always see the same thing. It's always the parents confused. The best thing that you can do if you want to help a young man, or if you are a young man and you're watching this, is to take back control of your own life. Do not exert it over other people. Do not harm other people. Do not do this at the expense of other people. Take control, take responsibility, accept your current circumstances, but also realize that you are days away from getting that power and control of your own destiny back. Go to the gym, lift some weights, train like a psycho, eat well, drink lots of water, get a good night's sleep, listen to some positive podcasts, YouTube videos, cut out negativity, stop scrolling on TikTok and Instagram, and I promise you, you will feel better in very quick time. And then just build on that momentum. Keep building. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just keep going. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I really hope this helps.